Oh, you just muted.
This is just live. And I think we pulled this down. Leave it running.
Should we start? So it doesn't go in.
Well, I think there are two different applications. I think we are live on YouTube. And I think if we put it next time now. Stop. Why is this now?
Oh,
Oh, wait a minute. No, it's one. See, there we go. And then I would just leave that up there, huh?
okay, and then I'll bring the other paper copies
So
in.
then we gotta remember.
Then do you sit in on this meeting too? Oh,
I think we should just abolish this board. But I don't have.
I know that I talked about actions. And so I just want some balance. There is a lot of information from different I remember that how and so I remember sound but you have better outcome of and the vaccine, which is going to create. So I just want to have opportunities. So she was how long and see that happening in the last she said it's kind of probably looking at we bring to that and she said, oh, that's is we that taking responsibility doesn't share our side story, which is the best way is to look at or so why are we and so I don't chase vaccines. And I see that this is something that involves to have set that step. So I have brought federation that like you guys to just speak. This is talking about preventative ivermectin, early outpatient and this is showing what happened. You know what's going on. Well, they were able to overcome this once they got elected. The analysis documented or wrong. I just I understand that as a analyst, and it makes my guys, but it's the solution has to be out. Solution. Yes, solutions. So I just say that. Why not? I'm happy. I do. I don't want this decision. I just really work out because you want to relate as our is not. And for some reason, we're not even talking about this. Okay? And, you know, I have top researchers that I know, speaking on the phone, and Detroit, these new traits, he's the most studied person on all this information. And, you know, there is two different major causes of physicians, particularly for new having, because all this information is not safety of I'm on the choice. Okay, and so I absolutely have to serve. And I saw this and I didn't believe it, so I wanted to ask. Sir. No. Actually, no. Hi, you pick up the checks. That's it. I know. How are you? Yeah, it'll be fine because it's like, you know, it'll be okay. Rob and I went on this morning, kind of clean up a little bit. And he in the bathroom. Okay. Cool. I think I think that.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. Would you be more comfortable if I went and got a mask?
No.
You sure?
Yeah.
Because I'm more than open to doing it.
So maybe I'm taking you've had vaccine as well, so
I'm about ready for a booster, actually. I'm
I think
pretty
September
close.
where we'll be up.
Yeah, I'm getting very close, but I'm happy to
Do you
do that.
know the consensus of the others? Have they been?
They haven't been, but you know, things change so quickly. You should do what you're
No, yeah,
comfortable doing.
for sure.
You
So-
mean in terms of vaccination?
Yeah.
I know Dan is. I imagine Sue is.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, pretty much almost everybody that's on
You would think,
boards are, but you never know.
Right.
I know Dan is, because we volunteer to clinics together.
I
So,
think if we're vaccinated, we should.
but I think you're okay to ask people. I think
Yeah.
you're more, yeah, oh, absolutely. I'll ask. You know what? I'll ask. I'm fine to do that. And we actually can kind of spread out too
Yeah,
today, because there aren't that many of us
Right,
in
right,
this committee. So,
I appreciate it, Sue.
you
it's
know,
one of
Patrick,
those things.
we gotta do what we gotta do.
Amen.
And I wear them like in the grocery store and when I'm with people that I don't know
Exactly.
anything about.
Yeah, so it's Margie when she goes to the grocery store.
Yeah, well, it's just,
I
you know, I read a great article just a couple days ago. You never know how accurate they, you know, because it was online. So,
Yeah,
but it was by a very reputable person and they were talking about how, vaccinated people, when they get Delta, thank you, when they get Delta, you know, we can get the virus. Obviously, we all know that at this point. We can get it. But vaccinated people tend to keep a high viral count in their throat for 5 days. And then it tanks, then it goes away quickly. Whereas unvaccinated people hang on a whole lot longer. So that was a very interesting, my
Yeah.
father-in-law is about 2 weeks out with COVID and he's 96.
oh boy,
Totally vaccinated, thank goodness.
Yeah.
And he's done extremely well.
oh good.
And we've been extremely careful. I mean, we've been dropping a dinner plate, but that's about it. Poor guy.
Yeah, 96.
You know, yeah, he's pretty amazing. But that was very interesting because I thought, okay, so that means if we get exposed, we get it as a vaccinated person. 14-day quarantine doesn't make sense for us, which they're not recommending now anyway.
Right,
I looked it up because I obviously was exposed to Paul when he got it.
sure.
And they said, if you're totally vaccinated, 3 to 4 days, take a test, which Mark and I got negative tests. And if you get symptoms, then you need to start all over again and check it out. But if you don't, you wear a mask inside for 14 days or until you get a negative test. So, that was 2 weeks ago. Now, I haven't looked at CDCs in the last week. I try and stay current, but yeah, it makes a difference. Hi,
Hi, you two.
how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. We're spreading out a little bit to keep everybody comfortable. Does that work for you guys?
What's that, spreading out?
Spreading out a
Oh,
little
yeah,
bit?
sure.
Yeah, that's.
I thought that was a cool.
Are you,
It's happening right now, Dana.
Kind of
Feel a
really.
little bad for
Well, that
Michael
sounds cool,
Berman.
Dana.
Yeah.
If you ever wanna, like,
He's a
show her
superintendent for school.
Oh.
Yes, I'm gonna
That's
take
when they
pictures
meet.
too.
Okay, I'll do it
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, there's a big push to try to get community members to come to
Yeah.
that.
Right,
That's
yeah.
supportive.
People here.
We're gonna do a little
I'm pretty well
big
aware of what's
movements
going
and
on.
stuff.
To me, it's.
Okay.
I'm sure you saw the newspaper.
Right now.
How you doing?
Good, how are you? Why are you asking?
One of those days where I had to make a list.
They shouldn't be asking.
9
They need
o'clock,
to,
10
they need to
o'clock.
do their homework. That's my personal opinion.
I hear you.
That's my personal
You
opinion.
probably saw that.
I think people are.
I didn't, but I have a niece who's very.
Yeah, which is a nice thing.
I'm gonna try to go and support them.
Yeah, I guess we gotta get used to it again, huh?
Well,
Yeah.
they're paying attention.
Yeah, have you seen the numbers?
what we
Like,
should be doing.
it was 27 yesterday.
I'm just watching the numbers increase too.
Hi, hello.
Oh, yeah, I know. I was talking to Julie Bacon.
Yeah. She's taken off.
I don't think this came with your packet, is that right?
Increase, yes.
It did not.
And the world.
Oh, yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Oh,
Well, let
So,
me see
yeah,
what you
have
wrote
this
here.
trip
Yeah,
planned.
but
This
this
did
is the
not.
piece that I was recommending.
Yeah, it did not.
Oh,
So, because I just reread, I just read it.
Yeah.
You know, like,
What is that?
probably be okay, but what if it's not? What if it explodes?
Yeah.
What if it shuts down? What if we can't
You just don't know.
stay in the places we're booked to stay
That was supposed
in?
to be part of the.
Oh, cool.
Thanks.
That's a really good blurb you wrote, Sue.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So it was a fine distinction that I had never really thought about, to be honest.
We used to get lectured about that so regularly.
It sounds like it.
Forest Service research, it was a big deal.
Education versus outreach.
Yeah, it was really interesting.
And it,
Hi, guys.
Nick?
How are you?
Nick, okay, good.
and Denise, is it?
No,
Bridget. Bridget.
Yes,
Oh, just wanted to say hi.
hi. Nice to see you.
Pre-board says hello.
Hello.
Do you have enough packets, the agendas for city?
Yeah,
members?
yeah, I usually.
Yeah, I brought mine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Exactly one.
That's okay. I do it.
Like for 5 minutes to figure out where my phone was. Wasn't in my bag, thought it was in my office, went back up to my office, realized it's probably in my car, went back to my car.
You needed a homing device.
I know, I need like a safety chain for my head.
Oh, dear.
No, it's past the hard part of summer, it's onto the.
It is. I mean, I think too, there's a noticeable difference at our house. I mean, I can
It
tell.
looks really
It's not
nice.
that it's quiet, but I was up at 5:30 this morning, it was quiet, but by about 6, literally, I was sitting on the porch. And by 6, it was like
So we're gonna get a tour sometime.
and the trucks started coming in. and
But we're gonna
garbage
take it up
trucks.
to Mark, that's the weekend after Labor Day.
Yeah.
For the mountain bike.
Yeah,
But it is
And
quieter
then,
than it was 2
We're gonna
weeks
try to
ago.
go.
Definitely
Before
quieter.
that, just to do a.
Yeah.
like a Test crew.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I just gotta get stuff for you.
Yeah.
Have to kind of output a little bit, but.
he's been joining us.
A little bit more before we actually know.
Thank you for the warning. And Ben is joining us apparently.
Ben,
Ben, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
super, good,
Thanks.
Have fun, guys.
thanks.
All right, I call the meeting to order. Is anyone taking minutes? I bet
Would you like me to take minutes?
that would be great, thank you. Yeah,
Victor's not with us today, obviously.
he is not.
I hope he's
So,
not quarantining or something like that.
no, was it,
Yeah, I was just, it's all right, I'll remember. I can thank you.
there's a,
I can, I can email it with you.
Okay.
I did it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think you guys.
Too notes intensive. Okay, so first order of business is to approve the minutes of the July 16
Do you
meeting.
want roll call, Sue, or no? We're good.
Oh, yeah, you're right, we do roll call. Patrick, I don't remember your last name.
Wise.
Patrick Wise,
Yes.
Nancy Rondell.
Yep.
Karen Straw. Yes. And Dana Mulder.
Here.
And Sue Stewart. Okay,
She's
I am here, yes.
That attached to the body.
One question, yeah, right, for the moment anyway. One question that I had about the minutes from the July 16 meeting is why it's referred to as a special meeting.
I
Was it
wondered that
because we-
too.
Because we changed the dates?
I wondered that too. Why? Maybe because it
Maybe
wasn't,
we published the old meeting and they didn't have time to publish a new time or something.
Yeah, maybe.
I wondered that too. I'm like, was that a special meeting? But we did change the date, didn't we? Oh, wait, why did we change the date on it? Do you remember?
We may just have moved it off of a slightly busier weekend to a slightly less busy weekend.
Where do you see
Hey,
special?
Nick.
I didn't even notice that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you remember why our July 16 meeting is referred to as a special meeting? Did we hold that at a different time, or is this leftover from a?
Let me go grab the minutes and see.
They're right here. The minutes right here, and they're on the table there. And it says it's a special meeting, but none of us remembers it being a special meeting.
Well, they're all special.
They're all special, but wasn't,
I mean, it seems to me it was the day we were supposed to meet, because I had all the dates on my
Yeah,
calendar, years in advance, months in advance.
You know what? It's the third Friday. I'm looking at the calendar. It was the third Friday, so it wasn't a special meeting.
So,
So that should be struck from the minutes.
okay.
Because I didn't remember. We changed some other one, but not that one.
I don't see special meeting on here anyway.
At the
It's at
top
the
of
top.
the,
First paragraph.
yeah,
Chairperson Stewart called the special meeting of the Harbor Springs Tree Advisory Board, right at the top
Oh,
of
I got
the, yeah.
we'll
Doesn't
strike.
appear to be a special meeting.
Okay, well, I think we can strike special.
My
and-
guess is it's just leftover
Leftover
language
from-
and somebody copy
from-
and pasted a little hastily like
Yeah,
we've been known to do.
right.
Yeah.
That's how the world runs. Okay, so,
That was it.
so we'll strike special and, are there any other changes?
Maybe no changes.
I would move that we approve the minutes with the correction as stated.
I move second.
Do we need to do a roll call vote on this?
We're all here. I don't think so. It's
Okay.
just when committee members aren't here.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes and our meeting minutes are approved. Board communications, I don't believe we have any.
I have something and it's a verbal communication and I don't know if it's something we want to discuss now or later. We had the DDA Downtown Enhancement Committee meeting this week. And we still continue to look for ways to get Main Street looking nice until we get some more money to do something significant, but there's dead trees. So I don't know if we want to bump that to the city first to have them replace it out of their budget, or if we want to give them some recommendations for what to put on Main Street.
Ben, do you know anything about the status of dead trees on Main Street?
I don't.
Okay.
Ken, would you like to have a look and give us your professional opinion on which ones really are dead or which ones might come back?
I think what we do is ask Victor to ask Ben to
Gotcha.
do that. So would you, Dana, would you agree to write Victor and bring that to his attention and ask him
Yes.
where it is on the?
If I may, I mean, normally what we do is, through update of the inventory, we check condition, and then it's relative to everything else that we're doing. And I think we're behind in that.
Okay, well, we'll have Victor pester you about it, all right? Change your priorities for you.
Okay, do we want to have ideas in our letter to Victor on what we might like to see?
Oh, I'm sure you can include that. If DDA wants to include ideas for what they'd like to see, then,
Yeah, but
and then
yes.
he can bring that to us if he wants us to
Good point.
discuss it, and
Okay.
if not, he can just take care of it.
What were some examples of what came out of the meeting, the DDA meeting?
Enhancement meeting?
Yeah,
Well, I was totally shut down on doing anything more on the tree grade project because they don't want any DDA time spent on it because it's not officially a DDA project, so council had asked us to look into it. And it's not in our TIF plan, and our TIF plan doesn't get updated until 2023. So we're gonna have to figure out, maybe I'll talk to you later. But I just feel like we should be working on what we can do to make it more affordable. Like you and I talked, maybe there are a whole lot of trees on Main, maybe we take one out per block or something. Yeah, just some other various ideas, like, if we were able to do donate a tree program or even donate a tree grate program, but they just don't want to spend any time on it right now. So we're kind of stalled on that. I think, to me, that's like the most important project that the DDA should be working on right now. But anyway, so we're working on Merchants Walkway, we're putting together a landscape plan. So we've all just kind of realized how little of Merchants Walkway really the city owns. So it's that little patio square, the brick square where the fountain is. Do you know what I'm talking about, Patrick? Yeah. And then there's a little alley from that goes straight out to Bay Street. And
Like
that's it.
persons and all the way. to
Everything
the
else
other
is
side.
all easements.
Is private.
So we went through the
that's all
whole,
private, that's all private behind
It's a
us.
long
yeah.
time ago.
Okay.
we went through a whole thing on what do we do, and they don't want to do anything short-term, like send letters out, either strong arm letters from the city saying, please remove your weeds, or soft touch letters from us saying, hey, we've got this great project we're working on. In the meantime, could you pull your weeds? They don't want to do that either. So let's see. So then I'm going to drop a landscape plan for that area. We're discussing maybe removing the fountain and just having like a little bubbler fountain like we've got downtown here. Like, and then having a bigger area. And Margot is supposedly looking into repairing the bricks, which I don't think is a great idea with Tim. I think we just need to, I think we need to do some surveys like, is anybody using it? Will anybody use it?
Does anybody go?
Do
back
we
to
want
it?
to spend a lot of money on this, or do we want to just like take out all the crumbling bricks and do like, maybe we even could do like a nice concrete patio with some brick detail or something like that. And then, so all that landscaping weeds along there belongs to the store owners. So I'm gonna drop a little plan and have some landscaping that'll tie everything together. And then we're gonna go to the store owners and offer them grants to do it.
Mhm.
So where exactly is this public walkway? I mean, where is it?
It's behind the Main Street stores on the south side of Main.
Right.
So, you know,
Right.
behind Graham, that, so it goes
Yeah.
all the way between State Road and what's that street?
Spring.
Yeah.
Is that, but didn't you say that's actually not public land?
There's a little portion, like Dan said, where there's a fountain, that's
Yeah.
city property. I'd have to pull a map up.
The
Okay,
rest
But I
is
know
easements.
a lot of it is owned by the store owners, and the city must have an easement to walk
They do.
through there.
okay.
But
Okay,
very,
know where it
I
is.
mean, it's not used very
So
much.
there's no tree stuff involved, just,
Mhm.
yeah, so those are kind of our main things we're working on right now.
Okay, any other board communications? Any public comments? Ben, do you have any comments wearing your hat as a public?
No.
All right.
I have input. This would be from the Marina Park Committee this week. That we have now gotten back our surveys and they can be found in our meeting packet. This was on Wednesday. You know, we've had that little sign down there with the QR code where you can take the survey. And there were a number of comments about wanting trees. So that's all I can offer right now. So we're not putting trees in yet. We have to get a plan together and, you know, there'll probably be lots of public hearings and all that kind of stuff.
Good to know. Is there anything under old business? Don't believe there is. In new business, the handout I gave you, Ben, the handout, well, you don't have to know the details, Ben, because it's not relevant to you as an arborist, but just so you understand what we're talking about. The one pager that I wrote for the meeting packet references the thing I'm attaching, and it never got attached, but it's from the Water Outreach Education Group at UW-Madison's Extension Service, and it has a little explainer on what the difference is between education and public outreach. I included it because I think it makes that distinction more clear, and I wanted us to start this whole discussion about outreach with an understanding of why that's different from education and what our unique role is in doing outreach. So were there any questions on or comments on the one pager?
That was very good.
Great.
So the biggest objective in redefining what we're trying to do when we call it education is really kind of following the lead of University of Wisconsin, Michigan State, and how they use the term outreach as opposed to education. And the
Yes.
reason that distinction exists is on this handout you just gave to us, the frequently asked questions. And that explains it pretty well, the difference between education and public outreach, and how it's defined.
We're not teachers, we're not in a formal classroom setting, we're not focused on pedagogy, we're getting expert ideas from all different places to groups that in a way that hopefully helps them be more enthusiastic and supportive of our programs.
But then we take ownership of it.
Yes. So with that, the two goals, we had been working through our goals, and the two goals that Victor and I thought would work well at this meeting where he's not here and there's really no heavy involvement from the city on how to do this. Both of these are outreach goals. And what we need to decide, to give those a little bit more structure, what we need to decide on each of these is really the who, what, where, why, and when of goal 5.7.10 and 5.7.1.
Okay, let's start with who.
Well,
Yeah.
as part of that, I don't want to take away from this, but this is kind of part of it. I did put together some ideas on our outreach topics. You know, how we use the term education of the public, our residents. So I've changed that to outreach, but I didn't put together some ideas on paper here. I'm not on Wi-Fi here. I could share my screen, but I have copies and I could give a
Do you want me
copy
to get
today.
a cup? We could try it if you want. Or do you don't just want to do handouts?
Well, however it would work best for you guys. I have handouts for everybody.
Oh, just do the handouts. Ben, you're not going to feel left out, are you?
I can forward a copy to you.
I'll
if you
do
want.
I just have a quick comment. I was looking at the bylaws.
Yes.
Retreat, because I'm on bylaws and committees these
Yeah.
days. And we actually use the word education. in
Yeah,
bylaws.
and we should, and
So that's something that's having changed by council,
Yeah.
but it is something that we want to be consistent if we're gonna do that. We say education of tree benefits. I don't think we want to say outreach of tree benefits, but I think we need to change that wording.
yeah, and which,
That's under the purpose.
okay.
Under Article 1, Section 3, purpose.
Would you like me to look at that and suggest a way to
I mean, I
rewrite it?
think, yeah, just so that we're consistent in what we're saying, not to be a bugger about that, but.
Yeah, nope, I agree,
on that-
that's,
On that stuff, we're trying to clean up some of the stuff, but not really.
No, if we write things down, it should be the right things that we write down. It's kind of the reason you do it,
Yeah.
is to formalize it and make sure that there's consistency.
Yes, I think it's important, because otherwise we get ourselves into trouble, at least council does. So, and if you all would help me remember under new business, when we're done with both, I have one other thing I want to talk about was the bylaws. That kind of goes hand in hand in that. So,
Okay.
so we've got these.
So, yeah, great. This is great. Karen, so Karen's handout here on the outreach draft.
Ben, I just sent this handout to you as a text message. Sorry.
Thank you. Great.
You want me to run through this, Sue, or you want to, everybody just read through it?
I think if we read through let's take a minute to read, I guess. I can't read and talk at the same time. I'm lousy at that. Okay. So where I think we start with this is to, Nancy's got me on this now, is to figure out how this fits with the purpose statement and also with the plan, the tree plan. So
So I'll give you my thoughts on that. So today I thought we would just kind of look at the overall idea of how we deliver this information to city residents. And then I think our plan is, as part of our overall tree plan, is to grow support of that by the city residences and engage them in understanding the value of trees, you know, through the outreach that we do. And then defining what trees we're talking about, where they are, you know, a little summary of what we've actually counted as trees in our city boundaries. And then where they can go for additional information, because I did create that QR code for the tree plan, which can be inserted anywhere. And then try to separate out the information between fall and spring. Because obviously different things happen in each season. So fall topics, just some ideas, you know, again, I know there's a lot of article in the Harbor Light that Victor had written some time ago. I want to pull it up again and look at it to see what was covered in there already. It was quite a long article, so there could be pieces of it that we can repeat. I think for us, we don't want to make it too detailed, but just kind of have a series of topics that either appear monthly or whatever in the Harbor Light or whatever means we try to disseminate the information. So it's always kind of in front of people. So they're getting a little bit each time. So in the fall, of course, it's, okay, this is where we are right now. And then now you know a little bit more about us. So we're going to help you understand how you can prepare the city trees and your trees for fall. You know, like what do you need to do? And then what are your rights and responsibilities? You may not even know that the tree you think is yours is not really yours. And then the whole thing on the tree bases, you know, some of the things that we talked about before, those just might be some introductory topics for fall, just to kind of get it rolling. And then we come back into the spring and then we talk about the planting guidelines, which the city of Harbor Springs follows, the maintenance of the trees by the DPW and by property owners, the species that we've targeted to be planted and why we pick those species as priority trees to be planted when we plant them. What requirements that property owners have for the tree maintenance, and when the city has to replace their trees. Again, implement the tree base plan, whatever that might be, work on the Arbor Day, look at promotional education programs, which could include the Parks and Rec department, and you know, nature walks, all those kinds of things that aren't already done by Little Traverse Conservancy. And then I know we've talked about some way to identify trees by sign so people can get informed about what trees are actually, around. What do we mean by this kind of a tree? What does that look like? And then talk to the public about funding sources, the tree donation program, the grants that we've applied for, city funds, et cetera, and then tell them how to volunteer for initiatives. So those were just ideas of topics that might be covered.
Sure.
So the question is then how do we get this out, this message out
I
to?
did have an idea about that.
A process note here, when we put articles in the newspaper, it's Victor who puts those in. So the way I would see this working is we would choose this topic and get ideas together for him or draft it for him, but then it goes to him and he puts it in. So that's the process.
That's what I assumed, but I didn't want to really assume that.
Yeah,
Given
yeah.
how we've had to discuss the different roles and responsibilities of the TAB versus the city.
Yes.
So, yeah, and plus, I can't assume that he's gonna have time to do all this either.
That's
So-
right.
so
And
that's the
I
other
think
part of it.
even if it's we write it but it goes from his desk, I think
Mhm.
that is his strong preference, that it goes from his desk.
So that's fine. That's
So-
great.
So I did have an idea about that as, I don't know how often we do it, but we could have a tree corner in the Harbor Light.
Yeah.
Could be every week, or it could be once a month. And we could, one thing we could do is highlight a species of trees that you see around here a lot and what can be learned about it and the history of it and why it's valuable. And you could have a picture of a leaf and a picture of the tree. And then we could also have a little blurb on what we have coming up or, whatever else we want to put in the article. We could call it Tree Corner or something like
That's a
that.
great idea.
And then people would look forward to seeing it.
That's a great idea.
We could we do like some type of a tie-in with kids where send us a note on where you saw one of these trees and he entered, or a treasure hunt, he entered to win, or I don't know. I don't know, you have to have prizes for everything, but a way to engage kids.
At least that might be something fun to pull the Parks and Rec, Rachel into.
Oh, yeah.
With the park.
Yeah, I wonder if we wanted to start,
Yeah.
is she invited to our meetings?
We haven't formally invited her yet, but why don't we put that on the minute that we'd like to do that.
Are we doing all that, which I'm in favor of, but I'm looking at the purpose of this committee. And we need to be able to say why we're doing what we're doing under our purpose. So are we thinking that, can I read this to you guys?
Yeah.
Can I just read it? It's short. The purpose of the Tree Advisory Board is recognizing the many benefits of reforestation, tree management, this is really hard on my phone, tree management and the protection and preservation of the city's existing tree inventory.
Is this from the tree plan, Nancy?
No, this is our bylaws. This is in the bylaws of
Okay.
why this committee was formed.
Where are those bylaws, Nancy?
You can get to them on the website under
On the
government,
city website.
under tree, and then there are
Okay,
bylaws
okay.
for
All
each
right.
committee.
All right.
Okay, so, and preservation of the city's existing tree inventory, the city council formed the board to assist the city council and other governmental departments on issues dealing with trees, education of tree benefits and tree policies, and generally to maintain and improve the city's urban forests. So is that the catch part of it that allows us to request staff to do, to put articles in? I feel okay with that.
Yeah.
Preserving the urban forest. Okay, I just think we need to be really
I agree.
That's good.
careful that we go back to the original stuff when we start
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah.
And then-
That's a good point.
And that brings me to a point that about the tree corner in the Harbor Light and how often we do it. That again really has to be something that staff can manage. The timing, how often
Right.
is, especially as we get it started. Once we get it down and we have a template, then it goes faster, but it may take us a while to get sort of
Yeah, and
up
there
to
even could
speed.
be a blurb in that about dear Dr. Tree or dear Ben, and then we could have a common question, a frequently asked question about trees where
Yeah.
Ben could address an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. You like that one, Ben?
I want to throw a comment in here really quickly because, many places in what Nancy just recited in the bylaws indicates to maintain the existing urban canopy that we have. And we have zero maintenance budget. And we keep talking about adding more and more trees, but we don't have a way to take care of them.
I
And
think that's gonna be another meeting maybe though, since Victor's not
I
here.
feel like we're putting the cart before the horse. The services that trees provide will rapidly become disservices in hazard and infrastructure damage if we don't take care of them. And I think that, maybe it's great to get the public involved, but is there a way that we can stream the public into the idea that we need funding to take care of this asset so it doesn't become a liability?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good thought.
I mean, essentially, it's like we've gotten this puppy, but we
Right.
haven't gotten a budget to feed it or take it to the vet, or we've not committed to take it for walks. I mean, what are we going to have?
Ben, along those lines, what do you know about the availability of grants to put toward maintenance of existing trees? Because it seems like it's easier to get grant funding for planting trees.
We can get, interestingly enough, the DNR grant that Kevin Sayers administers, we can get planting money. We can get money to update our inventory. If we get money to plant trees, they will only give us money to plant trees if we have a maintenance program that we've already initiated. But the maintenance programs they have to be city funded. So like we won't get money to take care of our trees. We will get money to put more trees in our inventory, but they'll require that we take care of them. And that's the thing that's kind of frustrating is that we're not able to find the consensus seems to be in a lot of the people that are, and I say people with air quotes, but the entities that are granting money, that they will help us expand our number of trees, but it is solely our responsibility to take care of them. If we can't take care of them, then they are not going to do it for us. And that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
It's frustrating, but it's also asking the city, this is Nancy, Ben, to have a buy-in on it, to be dedicated to taking care of what they're given money for. So, I mean, I can see both sides of that. I'm sure it's frustrating, but they also want to know they give you money to plant, but then if we can't take care of them, they're just going to die. So that's not a good expenditure.
So maybe one of the messages that we need to get back to city council is that we're not really going to be able to get new grants for planting new trees unless we also have money dedicated to maintaining trees.
Commitment from the city that they're going to maintain.
Yeah.
But isn't it something that the DPW does do? I mean, don't they do things to,
Well, they do
take care of the trees
they
and
do
trim
some.
and water and?
But I don't think, and don't quote me on this because I'm not the budget expert yet, but I don't think there's a line item, budget item, is there, for maintaining trees
There is
specifically?
not.
That's what I thought. So budget
Kind of
times,
comes
budget,
along with what
it,
they
it
do.
goes under other things. And, at this point, if we're really serious about being a Tree USA and all of the work everybody's putting into this, the tree committee needs to ask for some money designated for it. I mean, that's,
Well, and
you guys have to do
we also
that.
have to be honest about what we're asking the DPW to do, because when they're, when they're trimming or something like that, it is, kind of it's the answer of last resort. I mean, they are doing it because something else happened. Somebody's complained about it. There's been a failure. We don't have people that are trained in preventive maintenance or and a lot of times the guys that are doing a lot of the pruning are the electrical guys. I mean, they do it to provide electricity to houses, not for the betterment of trees.
Right.
And then the guys that are doing streets are doing it because they need to see road signs or because they need clearance. They are simply, a measurement problem, not a biological issue. So.
And this
we
is where outreach is really important, Ben, because really for most people, I'm gonna go out and limb here.
And we could
Trees
get a
don't
grant for
really-
outreach. Actually, I've talked to Kevin Sayers about that. I did a trial grant through MSU where we apply for money to train somebody from the DPW and electric department and proper pruning techniques, and then we recycle that curriculum on a Saturday and open it to the public so that homeowners can experience what's good and bad trimming and pruning and tree care.
You get that grant, Ben?
I can put it on a really long list, but I can talk to Kevin Sayers a little bit more about it if I get a second. I think I'll have more availability to chat with him probably in the next few months. Kevin Sayers, I'm sorry if I didn't say earlier, is the one guy that administers the urban and community forestry grant for the state of Michigan, which is federally mandated and then given to the state to disperse.
Right.
What
and
group is that again? I'm gonna put that in a minute.
State and private, it's the state and private forestry branch of the Forest Service that passes money through to the state for funding the urban and community forestry outreach program in the state. And Kevin Sayers is the person. He came and visited us a number of years ago, and it's possible to request his attention again, one way or another, remotely.
Is he part, does the money start with National Forest Service, comes to the state then, through the
Comes to the
DNR?
state DNR, yep.
Okay.
It's actually the biggest branch of the Forest Service, state and private. Then that's a good topic, and it isn't specific to anything that we're talking about here, but noted, it's in the minutes. And if you want to elevate it, send Victor a note and tell him you'd like to see that on our agenda in future. Because I do think it deserves some attention, and I think he also would like to be here for that because it's a function of the city and what the city does. Going back to this outreach draft, Karen, what is the plan for tree bases?
Well, it's sort of what we were talking about, Main Street, part of that. And then also the maintenance of the tree, the newly planted trees, like what we did along the spillway here. So the base to me is more than the grades, but it's everything that happens at the bottom of the tree to help it survive.
I think, yeah, especially the weed whipping issue.
Oh, yeah, because they're knocking,
Spark
slicing
off
the
the
bark
tree,
and stuff. By no means is this a comprehensive list for fall and spring, but I went through the tree plan and came up with some topics from that. So this is evolving, and I think it'd be really great to, have time for everybody to look through it again and then bring in Victor and the team and Ben and kind of get their input on it, and what's reasonable in terms of what they're going to be able to do, what Victor's going to be able to do, and how we might want to plan and how often we want to get this out there.
Sure, that's great. The one thing I think would help us all, if you were to crosswalk this with the tree plan, so that we know which goals from the tree plan we're addressing with each of these things.
Yeah.
That would be great. And if we find that there are topics or objectives on this that aren't represented in the tree plan, then we should figure out then we need to know which those are. So bring those to the attention of the group.
Sure.
We do that. That sounds great.
That's great, Karen. That was a lot of work. Thanks.
Yeah. I think the other thing, that the topics, it'd be good to discuss those with Victor and ask him how much he wants to drive that bus. Does he want us to drive that bus? What are the roles in figuring out which topics to tackle in a given season?
And, I also wondered about social media in this. I know we typically talk about the Harbor Light, but I know there's a Facebook page. I don't know, actively it's updated. I've asked that question. I don't know who does that for the city. Is that Nick or who does
I
the?
think Victor.
Victor does that too.
Yeah.
Instagram, I don't know how much presence we have there. I really haven't seen anything.
Again, I think if one feeds content to Victor and he pushes the button on it, that's probably a good system for getting that there. Which also means discussing this at a meeting where he's it's distracting. Because it flashes too. So yeah, that'd be great. Do we, let's see, if we were to go back to the new business part of the agenda and look at the two goals that we have listed here, where are these ideas that are addressed in the outreach draft that you have here?
Yes, both of them are in some ways because
They kind of
goal
overlap really.
5.710 is, guidance to the residents, which is part of this overall outreach draft. And then to educate residents on observing trees for potential pests, that's part of this as well. So, yeah, but so these speak to specific parts of the tree plan, which can again be referenced over here when
Sure.
I add that to what this is and consolidate some of it.
So in terms of where goal 5.7.10 shows up on this plan, where would you see, when would you see writing about that topic?
I would see that happening in fall,
This is a fall topic.
right? It'd be the start of it, like how they care for it in the fall. It's going to be a little different than how they care for it in the spring, but you can still start with it in the fall and kind of start that outreach process, or sort of use the term education process. But what can you do in the fall with the trees that are yours in the cities on your property? And then in the spring, we come back and talk about how we prepare for the spring.
So it's where, under how to prepare trees for fall is where this overlaps.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
All right, and then,
And plan for.
This is really good that we're referencing the tree plan,
It will make it much.
referencing the bylaws and making sure everything holds together.
We really
because
wanted all
It
the.
doesn't happen in the last stuff,
Because a lot of this did come right from the tree plan itself and our goals, right? I didn't reference them, but I can. That's easy to do.
yeah, I think, because we all have worked on getting buy-in on the tree plan and everything, and I can see that this draft is informed by the plan. If we show where that maps, I think then it makes it easier to,
Do we want for
Work on
our
it.
purposes to have a little parentheses after some of these that say goal 5.7.1? Just reference it right
Yeah.
down here.
and then 5.7.1, the reason that this is on the agenda is that, and I'm sure Ben knows this, August is Check Your Trees Month.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't either. Is
Yeah.
that an official thing?
Yeah, I don't know whose initiative that is, if that's DNR or if that's the Arbor Day Foundation or or whose that is. But there seems to be some information out there right now about
What to look for.
check your tree, your trees. We also have recently had confirmed the first confirmed case of Hemlock woody Adelgid in Southwest Michigan. So that's a scary one.
Is that
Is
a
it-
bug? I'm
It's a-
sorry. I don't know
Yeah,
what that
it
is.
is.
Okay, sounds scary.
Yeah, it does.
Ben, do you want to understand, do you want to explain Hemlock woody Adelgid?
Sure.
So I can understand, Ben.
And me too.
Oh, wow.
What
What
is
is a
it?
different color? So,
Yes, I know.
I mean, Adelgids are related to scale and aphids. They're,
Okay,
they used to be called homopterans, but that group of insects is no longer called homopterans anymore.
okay.
It used to be nice and simple. They all are what's called sucking pests. They have a mouth part that's like a straw, and they stick it into a cell, and they drain the cell of fluid, and they take what they like, and then they kick out what they don't like out the back end.
Okay,
And their Adelgids are usually host specific. The problem with Hemlock woolly Adelgid is that it prefers the hemlock tree. It doesn't have another host, and it builds populations very quickly, and it doesn't have a native predator in the United States. And so what happens is it starts to colonize trees, and as it spreads, it takes a little bit of the energy of every single branch of every single twig, and eventually it drains the tree of its ability to fight diseases and other things, and the tree dies, or the tree just loses biological inertia and dies. I do have to point out that there was a Hemlock woolly Adelgid outbreak in Harbor Springs, in
Yeah.
Roaring Brook. So we were actually the first part of the state that had HWA. Nursery stock that was brought in for a planting, and that nursery stock was collected and destroyed by the state, and then the state actually sprayed and or treated the neighboring hemlocks for I think 7 years to try to contain this bog. It's not it's not a very aggressive insect. I mean, it's not like a boring insect where it chews holes through the tree, and one day you have a live tree, the next day you don't. It builds populations on the tree. It feeds, and it's kind of like this. Every day it's a little bit worse, but it never gets better, and eventually the trees succumb. But hemlocks occupy generally older forest conditions. They're not an early successional tree, so they're what we would kind of call old growth, if we still use the term old growth. And they like to grow close together, so you have high populations of hemlock in groups, which makes the transmission of this bug back and forth very effective. And they have really specific regeneration requirements. So it's hard to get hemlocks to grow if they're not already growing aggressively. And sometimes when hemlocks die out, they don't come back. Whereas like with beech trees, if we have a beech tree die, almost always you get a beech tree in the same spot, if not hundreds. So hemlocks, that doesn't happen. You may get maples or something else because they don't like the openings as much. But it's the thing that I guess is a really interesting testament is that if you go to places like the Great Smoky Mountains, where this has been kind of ground zero for the nation, they had huge hemlock populations, and thousands upon thousands of trees are dead, and it's this. It looks like lint, a little fuzzy size of a pencil lead dot on the underside of a branch that's doing all this damage. There's just lots and lots and lots of them, and it kind of blends in if you don't pay attention. And they're so small when they reproduce, they're carried by the wind. They just kind of drift.
So Ben, if this is something, I mean, the reason I was asking you about it is because we've got this goal that we're talking about, which is to educate residents on observing trees for potential pests and diseases. And with August being Check Your Trees Month and the HWA being newly confirmed again, I guess, in Michigan, I wonder if there's a way we can get some ready-made text and do an article about this.
Or this could be our first tree corner.
Yeah, our first tree corner, just the timeliness of it.
Yeah, there's pamphlets out there from, I think, the Forest Service. I think even like Cat Alert, the pest alerts from the DNR, they have stuff on HWA. The one caveat that I would have is that we've got to be careful about when we're talking about insects and trees, that a lot of well-meaning people are going to kind of run away with this. And a good illustration of this is the Asian longhorn beetle, which feeds on hardwoods. It's a big deal, and it has a cousin in the United States. It looks almost identical. Actually, there's two.
Right.
And it feeds on conifers. Well, I don't know how many times people call and say, I've got Asian longhorn beetle, and you ask them where they saw it, and it's chewing, it's on their white pine twig. And you say, well, different species. And so it might not be a bad idea to also include that there are several lookalike, there are Adelgids
Sure.
and woolly aphids, which are closely related, that feed on like white pines. And other things like, balsam twig Adelgid, which is a big pest, but not here. Looks very similar too.
There's something here from the DNR I just pulled out that it's easy to find out there.
Yeah, that's the forest pest alert that he was referencing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, does anyone here have time and inclination to take this on as a first sort of a demonstration project for a tree corner article for the Harbor Light?
I would do it.
Or you do it, Karen.
Karen and Dana, yep.
Okay, we'll do it together.
Yeah. okay.
Super. That'd be a nice way to do this.
Yeah.
I think the topic would work, and if we don't get it in August, it's not the end of the world.
Say we can look in
It's still an issue in September.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have any monster hornets yet, do we, Ben?
I'm sorry?
Monster hornets?
Murder hornets.
Murder hornets, yeah.
I believe those are on the West Coast,
Yeah, they're in the Northwest. I'm just kidding. We
Yeah,
don't see
okay,
it here.
good.
but we do have a cicada killer, which is pretty gross looking. I mean,
Those are big.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen those.
or if you guys have ever seen an ignumid wasp, those are even cooler. They have a tail that's about 6 inches long.
Oh, that's wonderful.
All right, fun and games. Okay, well, is there anything else about these two goals, or maybe jumping back to 5.7.10, distribute tips and guidelines to residents? Is that a topic that would lend itself well to trying a social media approach? Just because it's in small bits, there are many different tips.
I think we could do both. I mean, if Victor's willing to do that.
To accept input.
Yeah. Because I think that both these topics could be part of the first article.
I think
checking
so
your
too, and I
trees
think we do have to be
yeah.
cognizant of the age of our population in Harbor Springs.
Right.
You don't
So I
really
think we
wanna
could
go
do,
on
I mean, the
bladders.
messaging would be the
Just don't want to
same.
go on Facebook and.
Sure. Now, the other thing that I would say about the Harbor Light is it goes well beyond the area, and although that demographic might not be a lot younger, there probably are, I mean, it gets to a lot of
Right.
people. So,
Right. And that's something maybe that Victor can advise us about, like, no, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do the social, I don't have time for it or whatever.
Yeah,
Or,
we've
there's a
got
little
strict,
button on the Facebook page that could be access for this too, if he's willing. I guess we just need to talk to Victor about it.
okay, so that's a to-do item, is talk to Victor about social media, how that works, what he sees that focusing on, what kind of materials he would need from us in order to post something.
Maybe we could schedule a time to sit down with Victor.
That's good.
Super.
So let's say Karen and I get something roughed up. Does it get in the way of open meetings if we circulate it to see if anybody has input or?
If you send it to Victor,
Yeah.
he sends it to everybody for
Okay.
input, and then it's not a problem.
You guys know that you shouldn't do a reply all button
when Victor sends you something, you never should hit reply all because then it goes back to the whole committee. And then it's a problem with the open meetings.
Yeah, so with open meetings, Victor can send everything out to everybody and then we send them individually back to him and then he can share them out again. But if we're sending them back and forth, many to many, that's not good. It's one to many there and one to one back.
I never knew that.
Yeah, you just have to be a little careful. I don't think with what we're doing, there's a whole lot of issues with it, but it's a good practice. to
Oh,
be
we have
aware of.
some people looking for
Yeah,
opportunities
so, yeah,
to
we
make
just
that
need to
a
be-
big issue, so.
Yes, be careful. Another reason we have to make sure our bylaws match our plan, match what we do. It's just.
I did think of new business item too, whenever we're done discussing.
Sure, I think we're about there on that. Yeah,
So I guess how we're gonna leave it is Karen's gonna update this with the reference to the tree plan. And then her and I are gonna work on the first tree corner and get it to Victor to get back to you guys for input. Does that sound good?
yes.
We'll,
Mhm.
we'll sit down with Victor on this whole topic too.
Great.
Let's see. We have somebody who's interested in tree board. And this would be for when Sue retires, unless she's thinking of doing it again.
Oh, my 2 terms are up and I always talk about how important it is for people to rotate off boards and I can't go around talking about that and not also rotate off boards. I think it's really important.
When's your term up, Sue?
At the end of this year, I believe, in December, yeah.
And also Karen, yours is also up, just heads up.
Mine
So,
is already.
But that's your first term.
but that's your first, because you filled somebody's term. I
Okay,
don't remember.
yeah.
So
We
yeah.
just, at
But
council,
hopefully you're willing to be reappointed.
yeah, we just got the list at council of all the board positions that are turning over.
Okay,
And there are 12 of them this year. And because we're trying to get them on a rotation, like to all end in December. They were ending at all different times of the year, which was way too confusing.
Yeah,
But council did decide on Monday night that instead of going to the people that are on the boards and saying, do you want to continue? And basically automatically continuing them, that was not the way we want to do it anymore.
right.
Yay. That the people that are on are more than welcome to request to be back on. And Karen, for heaven's sakes, someone like you who filled a small part of a partial term,
Right,
it makes
absolutely.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
But we've got folks that have been on for many, many years. And part of that is just because they've automatically been put back on.
Right.
So we will be putting the word out there, Victor, we'll be putting the word out there in September, October, that here are the boards where there are openings. And we would like to encourage people to fill out an application if they're interested. So I would encourage us to encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
Because you need to know in the bylaws who it is. Some of them, this board all has to be residents of the city. All the boards don't. It depends which board it is.
why is it different?
It depends how they were set up.
Okay.
Except there are, the Planning Commission and the DDA are the 2 boards, I believe, and maybe the ZBA to a certain extent that have Michigan state laws we have to follow.
Mhm.
The tree board, the Harbor Commission, this city set those up. So they set them up the way they wanted. But the best thing is to go to the bylaws and read them.
Mhm.
That's just the best way to know. So, obviously Karen, I really encourage you to say, hey, I would like to continue and I've only been on for whatever, 6 months. But I think it's a good plan. It puts new blood in and I think that's just really an important thing to do.
Yeah, I agree. And it's not only that the board needs to be refreshed, it's that getting people to serve on a board
That's right.
really depends on them knowing that they will be allowed to graciously step off after they've been there for a
That's
couple
right.
terms. You can't sign people up for life. It's not fair.
And that the new people that come on will be listened to and
Mhm.
respected and treated equally. And if we have boards where we've got people, a majority have been on for 20 years, that's not a healthy thing for, I don't care if it's council, harbor commission, tree, it doesn't matter. I
Right.
just don't think it's healthy. So dovetailing into that, sorry, Deanna, that lasted longer than what you were gonna say.
Well, Nancy and I think everybody may know her here, and Patrick, you might even know her. Lisa Nickel lives in the city. And, but she, in the winter, lives on a boat somewhere else besides the city. So I think we're allowed to miss 3 meetings for the bylaws, right?
You can miss, if you miss 3 in a row that are not excused, then you
Yeah.
have to go, and you can't miss, if you miss a third of the meetings, there's 2 different things, so you have to look at. But the
So-
bylaws of this committee, Dana, say that we specifically meet every month on the 3rd Friday. I don't know why they did that in the bylaws, to be that specific. I wasn't on.
Yeah, and there
So-
have been months when we didn't meet. I mean, certainly when Tom was the city manager, there were many months we didn't meet. This group has been meeting much more consistently with under Victor's term
Again,
here.
following the bylaws.
Following the bylaws, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I would say about Lisa and being seasonal is that there was at least one, maybe more than one person on the tree board early on who was definitely seasonal and not here much, really. So,
I don't think she'd ever miss anything, and I think she'd be a big contributor.
Yeah.
When she is here, which would make up.
But can she meet virtually? Does she have to be in person? You have to be in person.
You do at this point,
Okay.
the governor, because we have to meet the Open Meetings Act, this is my
But
understanding.
do we fall under the,
We fall under the Open Meetings Act, and that is what the governor sort of, she didn't rescind the whole open meetings, but she allowed people to meet remotely and still vote. And then at the end of June, that went away. But we can double check. The other thing is to look at the bylaws and say, do we really need to put in here that we have to meet every month? Do we want, I mean, Harbor Commission is an
Right.
example that meets usually, not this year, they're gonna have a winter meeting, but usually meets very seasonally. From
Right.
April till October, I think, I don't quote me on those. But apparently, and I'd have to look, in their bylaws, it doesn't say that they have to meet every month. To change the bylaws, I believe it has to go to council, but again, I don't think council would have a problem with
we can just
that.
decide to say,
You'd
we
ask
might go
council.
every other month in the winter or something, I don't know.
Yeah, and of course, the other thing that to think about with meeting frequency is that traditionally, this is a board that has attracted people from the landscaping industry, and for them, it's really spring and summer that's harder. So it might be every other month all year with special meetings added as needed or something less constraining in terms of how and when and
It
how
doesn't seem
often.
like we ever have a lack of things to talk about.
Yeah,
No,
but
there's-
I know, I asked a question when I first joined, why is it we meet every month, you know? But
And
every
sometimes if
time
you-
we meet, there's stuff to talk about.
Yeah, if you don't meet every month, though, sometimes you just lose a sense of continuity.
Some
Yes,
momentum.
you do.
sometimes.
And it works well for me and probably for others too, that the meetings are roughly an hour because it's a work day and there are other things to.
So that's probably something we
Not to.
should think about, because, and not just for Lisa Nichols' sake, but just
Yeah.
in general, when people are looking to be on committees, sometimes the issue with that is they want to be gone for a couple months.
Yep.
And how
Do we want to put this on the agenda? I'm sorry, I interrupted.
On the
No, no,
agenda
no,
for
I think
next-
it's a good
Yeah,
idea.
to see if we can all think about it and see.
Yeah, maybe a review of the bylaws.
Yeah.
For next.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah, that would be good, and
Because
I'm
I'll
sure-
bring I'll bring the different language for the outreach. I'll do a search and replace.
And I think Victor could give us some good input on the legal aspects of it too, which I am not savvy about at all. So
Yeah,
some of the stuff is driven by city code, some of it's driven by the bylaws. But this is a committee that was specifically set up by the city of Harbor, so it doesn't have to answer to state laws as opposed to planning and some of the other ones, DDA.
So does that apply, though? That's what I'm saying, to Zoom or something.
I
if
believe
we-
it says in the bylaws that we have to meet all the criteria for open meeting, if I'm not mistaken, because I asked,
So do we want to change that?
and I don't know legally what that would do to us. You know, I
So-
don't know.
Maybe, can we put a note in here about, check if we can get around the Zoom, the meeting in person thing?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think the more maybe we can, since it's a committee.
Like if I've been remote in some meetings, I've been traveling, so if I wasn't here today, what would that mean? Because I'd be in on Zoom. I would be on Zoom.
You'd be able to participate as a public person. You can always participate as a public,
But
which
not as a
means you can
committee
have your
member?
say, but if we're gonna vote on something,
I can't.
you
vote
can't
remotely.
vote. That's where the,
Maybe that's okay. you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in terms
maybe
of
that's
keeping
fine.
up and being a good contributor. if
yeah,
it's-
maybe that's fine.
Yeah.
The thing is that in the bylaws, there are that stipulation that if you meet, I have unexcused absences 3 in a row, then it's a disciplinary type of thing that goes to council. Maybe we want to get rid of that. Maybe we don't care if everybody's here in person in this kind of committee. Maybe that really isn't important.
I think we just have to make sure we have quorum in case there is something that needs to be voted on.
Mhm. Good. All right. Anything else for today? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned.
We are so pumped. I love
Very
that.
good. Oh, yeah, right on.
No, those are good
Yeah.
things. I'm hoping all the committees will, and we're still on, but all the committees will take a look at their bylaws and make sure that they're in sync with all of them.
Yeah, that's, bylaws are supposed to be helpful, not a hindrance
Right,
and not,
exactly.
not irrelevant.
I'm gonna go
Is
ask
this gonna
Nick
be,
to
if it's
shut
a
us
part
off.
of the minutes today? Or is this something that we can just cover directly with Victor?
Why don't you send Victor a copy of
I'll
this
send him
and
a copy.
tell him this is what we were referencing in our
Mhm.
discussions.
Okay,
Can I ask a quick question? Why can't a person vote, a committee person vote from Zoom?
Because the state of Michigan disallows that. Yeah, they allowed it during the pandemic. But then that was that's what Nancy was saying was rescinded in June, I guess in June.
So there's possible this might be reinstated?
Yeah,
Oh, because
yeah,
everybody's keeping an eye on that.
yeah, right to the governor and
it's a COVID thing, right?
it was a COVID thing.
Yeah, still is a COVID thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
Yeah, it may be again, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, great.